Hey friends, it's Sadrian here and welcome to my very first, well, not my first coding video, but my first real one. And today I'm going to be demonstrating for you CSS Grid, which is something that I've learned very recently, and it's completely changed my life. So, bit of housekeeping before we get started. I'm kind of winging this, so it could be 5 minutes, it could be 5 hours, who knows. I also tend to make a lot of typos when I'm typing, and you're going to see that. And I swear a lot. So if you've got little ears listening that are likely to repeat anything that I say, you probably want to keep the volume to yourself. Alright, let's get started. So there are 3 tools that I particularly use when I'm working with code, especially if I'm using Grid. The first one is this here. And this is a lovely little web-based program called Figma. And Figma allows you to put your designs into an image format that you can sort of see what you're working with. Especially when you're doing Grid, having a very, very clear idea of what you want to achieve is really, really important. I used to think that I sucked at coding for quite a while because I was trying to pants everything. Basically, I was trying to go straight from a blank screen and design whatever was in my head, and a lot of the time there was nothing in my head, and I was getting frustrated because I couldn't get things that I wanted to just happen, and I would have to keep going back and making changes, and having a design already there just as an image makes a massive difference for me. It doesn't work for everyone, and some people don't need more complex tools. Some people just work from a very rough sketch. Some people work from MS Paint. However you do things is completely valid, but if you do find that you're struggling with getting a vision into code, wireframing, as it's called, getting your ideas into an image and then into code is a really, really good way to go. The second thing that I use is CodePen. You may be familiar with this. Basically, it just lets me code and see the results here immediately, and we love that. Finally, and almost always on my tabs list, is a complete guide to Grid from CSS Tricks, and this is the most amazing guide to everything that Grid has to offer. If you're familiar with Flex, you've probably seen their Flex tutorial, which is also another tab that I almost always have open. It's brilliant, and it goes through everything in a really clear and visual way. If you're not accustomed to Grid or you're not accustomed to Flex, it might appear to be a little bit overwhelming at first, but trust me, a lot of these things are going to make sense to you as you go along. They're definitely techniques worth persevering with, and a lot of people are they tend to be in one camp. You might have learned Flex and wonder why Grid is going to change your life, and I was one of those people at the start as well. You can do a lot with Flex, which is absolutely fantastic as well. And this is the CSS Tricks Complete Guide to Flexbox. I want both of these posters, but it's going to be like $24 shipping for a $25 poster, so that's not happening. But anyway, they've both been invaluable to me as guides. But yeah, people tend to fall into one of two camps. I can do Flex, why do I need Grid? And the Grid is life camp. And then you finally get to this third stage, which is Flex inside of Grid, and vice versa, is ultimate power. So, let's start from the start. What we need to begin with is a design. So I always start from a box. This is our box. It's a grey box. It's not a very exciting box. But then, okay, maybe we want to have one like this, and he's red. Actually, we won't use red, and I'll show you why in a minute. We'll make him blue. And maybe we want a box here. And we'll make him green. And we'll just keep adding boxes like this in different colors And this is, obviously I'm just demonstrating here, so this is very, very, very basic. We're just going to use some boxes to create a layout, and you can sort of see how complex it could get or won't get. This is just a very, very basic sort of layout. And obviously I'm showing you how I do this myself, so there are aspects of Grid that I don't use, and there are aspects of Grid that you may find are more useful to you than they are to me. So I'm running out of colours. Oh, how do we not use that one? And there. It's kind of pretty. It's not really. If I showed this, it actually looks a bit like that old screen that you used to see on TV when something went wrong, like the station error sort of thing. That's what it reminds me of. Oh, that's a horrible colour. I hate that colour. Alright, so here's our design. And you can sort of see it's kind of cool. It's a complex-ish layout, and you're probably thinking right now, I could do this in Flex. And you'd be right. Don't mind me, I'm just tidying things up because apparently I can't live with these edges. I'm going to. Alright, so now that we've got our box design, how do we get started with Grid? The first thing I do is I like to create some lines. And I always make these red for some reason, which is why I generally don't use red in my layouts. I do once they're in code, but I don't usually use it in the mockups. I'll just make that a bit thicker. So what we're going to do is we've got our vertical line here, and we're just going to create a line anywhere that there's a vertical break. So obviously we've got our starting line here, and the next one is going to be around about here, where that blue meets the pink and the green. Let's move my original. Just move that one back. And then we copy them again, and we move that one to along here. And it's quite easy in this particular layout to see where the breaks are, because it is a very simple layout. And then this one here, and of course this one at the end. Nice. And then we're just going to copy, paste, rotate it to be horizontal, and we're going to do the exact same thing, but with the horizontals. So copy and paste him, and he's going to go down to here where this break occurs, and again to here. So we're just dividing up all of the sections, and you can sort of start to see the grid coming along. Don't mind me, I need to have them aligned. And a little bit further down. And one more. There we go. So that's our grid map. And you can see, you know, this one's covers these 3 cells, this one covers 2 cells, this one covers 1 cell on its own. The next thing I like to do to make my life a lot easier oh dear, is to number them. And for some reason I'm still in Spectral. Let's make that something a bit easier to read. No, we don't like that. Figma's really good, and it's just got all of this. And I don't know what half of these fonts. These aren't my system fonts. They're mostly Google fonts, from what I can tell. Where is something nice and simple? Noto Sans. We love Noto Sans. So might bring that size down a bit. A little bit higher than that. So between this line and this line is column 1. Between this line and this line, we're going to call that column 2. And column 3. And column 4. Again, I like to keep it neat because I'm weird. And we're going to do the same with the rows. So we've got between this line and this line is row 1. Just move him up so that you can actually see it's row 1. Here to here is row 2. I'm not as good at placing these ones for some reason. Here to here is row 3. Here to here is row 4. And here to here is row 5. So now you can sort of see the way that the grid is taking shape. So we've got row 1 by column 1, row 2 by column 2, 3 by 3, 4 by 4, and row 5 as well. So you can see that this particular blue square takes up 3 rows and 1 column. This one takes up 1 column and 2 rows, but it's occupying column 2. And so this particular layout makes it much easier for me to visualize where I'm at and to see how everything gets placed in the grid itself. And if you're struggling to visualize your grids, definitely do this. So now we move on to the actual coding side of it. So we're going to create ourselves a div, and we're going to call him grid container. And just so that we know, you can see what I'm doing, we're going to like I said, I've got clumsy hands. We'll give it 85%. 2-pick solid, triple zeros, and 100-pick auto margin. So that's where our grid's sitting at the moment. Now, I use dual screens, so normally I pop this onto my other screen and work from there. But what we're going to do is we're going to work top to bottom, left to right. And we're going to start with this particular block here. So we're going to call this div class equals blue block. And close that div. And normally I put all of my divs into code into the HTML structure before I give them CSS, because then I can just sort of keep working. So our next one is going to be purple block. So div class equals, I told you I was going to make a heap of mistakes. I might actually, there we go. You should actually be able to see what I'm doing now. No, I don't format my HTML as I go. I'm far too lazy for that, and CodePen has a button that does it for me. So our next block is the cyan block. And so now we are down to the bottom here. We've done these 3, so it's pink block time. And green, well, we'll just call that green block. I know there's 2 green blocks. Whoa, 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 whoa. Div, dude. Div, not dick. That's our model. We've already done purple block, so it's up to light yellow. We're going to call this one orange, even though it's not very orange. We've already done this one down here, remember? So we've just got this green column here, and we're going to call that neon green. Oh my goodness, my fingers today are terrible. It's really hot today, so you can probably hear my air conditioner going in the background. It is not enough. It is still 30 degrees inside this house. Alright, so format that HTML just to make it pretty. And of course I will link this particular code pen in the description, as well as the complete guide to Grid, because it's just invaluable, honestly. It really is. So I also never ever type my CSS in proper format. Again, too lazy, and there's a button in CodePen that does it. So we'll just save that, because not saving things will lead to absolute heartbreak. Alright, so if we go back here and we look at blue block, we can see that it starts at column 1 and takes up one column. It starts at row 1 and takes up 3 rows. So we're just going to grab that. Hang on, we won't do that yet. So I always end up coming back here and copying this. I will always do this. I don't know why, it's just what I do. So going back, I've skipped ahead a step. First, what we need to do is we need to tell this container here, so this bit, exactly how many rows and columns we've got. And we do that with this bit of code here. So this tells it how many columns and how many rows. And there are a lot of different ways you can do this, but honestly, I'm the laziest person in the world. So we're just going to drop that in there. And we're going to type in 1FR for every single column that we've got. And as we can see on our diagram here, we've got 4 columns. So 1FR, copy it, paste it 4 times. Easy. And we're going to do the same thing with the rows. So rows is different. We've got 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Now, I should probably make some height on there. And we're going to do something fun here. We're going to call it 80 VH, which is going to be 80% of the viewport height. So the height of my screen at 80%. It's the same as 80% height. If we were to go 80 V min, it would take the 80% of whichever was shorter, the length or the height of my screen. We do love working in VMin, Vmax. Alright, so what you can see here is when I hover over it, and we'll get Inspector out for a second, is it will show me most of the time, if I can get my mouse in the right place, which I can't seem to at the moment. It will often show you the actual grid lines, but I can usually get it to do it. And the reason that I use 1FR to start with is 1FR basically tells it to take up one part of that space per row. So it's dividing the space evenly between these columns. So each of these columns is going to be the same size. And I wish that I could bloody show you, but it's not being nice. I hate when it does that. You can see when I re-inspect it in and out how it changes to fit my screen. And that's because we're using percentages and vmin. It's good stuff. We love it. I just wish that it would show me the grid lines. No, it just doesn't want to. Sorry about that. But it's kind of going to destroy half of what I wanted to do, because I'm so annoyed that it's not going to do that. What if we take the margin out? Why is it not working? Okay, well, imagine that there's 4 columns and 5 rows there that we can't quite see, but they do exist. I promise you they exist. So our next block is blue block. And again, I always go back to this. And we're looking on the item side of things. So this is all the stuff for the parent container. This is the stuff for the children. And over here, there's a couple of different ways to do this, but I don't use any of them. Well, I use one of them, obviously, because I do it. I use this one, this top one here, and I use the span technique. So just get rid of that so that I can show you what's going on. We'll just give it a background color to start with before I put all of this in. So ignore all of this junk, because it's kind of trying to show you different ways to do it. But we don't want to do that. Just grab this color. Background. Okay. So what we want to do is we want this blue block to start at column 1 and stretch across one column. So start 1, span 1. And it's not showing yet because it hasn't got any height to it. But that's the start. So we want, in terms of rows, we want to start at row 1, but this time we're going to span 1, 2, 3. And why is that not showing? Why is that not showing? That's very rude. This is the part where I start swearing. Where have I gone wrong? Ah, right. We've forgotten a very important part. Okay, this would explain why my grid's not showing. Alright, don't be me. We want this particular grid container to display grid. Oh my goodness. Display grid. And that will tell it that we're using a grid. And then you can see my grid lines. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that I'm recording this live and I completely forgot that particular piece. Display grid. It's what we're here for. It's the whole thing. So you can see when I hover over the edge of it that blue block now takes up 1 column and 3 rows. That's exactly what we wanted it to do. Sweet! So the next part is purple block. And we'll just scroll down so I can see what I'm doing. And as with anything, just copy and paste. This bitch loves copy and paste. And we're going to grab the purple color from over here. And because I haven't changed the grid details, it's going to appear exactly on top of that blue one. That's okay. Where do we want it to start? We want it to start in column 1, but we want it to go across and end at the end of column 2. So column start 1, span 2. And it's going to go across there. Sweet. It's almost what we want. It's not at all what we want. We need to change the rows. So our rows are start 4 and span 1, because we've got row 4 here, but it's only going down 1. So 4 and 1. That's going to fit that in there roughly like this. Obviously the sizing here is different. That's cool. We're just working with FRs at the moment, so this is going to divide the space evenly. I'll show you how to fix that later. I'm just going to change that margin back so it's centered again. Makes me happier. There we go. Alright, what's next? Cyan block. And as usual, copy, paste. This is absolutely no different to how I do it when I'm doing more complex stuff. It's a lot of copy and paste. It's a lot of, why isn't this working? And so we've got that. That hasn't turned the purple block cyan. That's laid another one on top of it. And that's one of the really cool things that you can do with Grid is everything will appear layered according to what appears last in the HTML. So purple block is still there. It's just under this one. It's kind of like absolute positioning, but without the pain. So we want it to start in column 1 and span across 1, 2, 3, 4. And that should reach the end there. Sweet! That worked exactly how we wanted it. In terms of columns, we want it to start, in terms of rows, we want it to start in row 5 and end in row 5. So row 5, and we've already got a span 1 there from purple block. Hey, look, we've got 3 blocks in already. Sweet. What's next? Pink block. At some point, I'm going to type cock. It's just going to happen, okay? It's not that I've got a dirty mind, it's just that my fingers are the worst. Alright, so pink block starts in column 2 and spans 1 column, just like that one. In fact, only purple block goes across more than 1 column. Oh, duh, that one too. Alright, so pink block, gonna copy and paste this. Grab that color. Being able to copy and paste colors from Figma is also next level. And another thing that Figma does is when you're changing colors, it will give you all of your project colors too. So these are all colors that I've used in this project. And this project in itself is actually quite a bit bigger than just this one sheet. With the free plan for Figma, you get 3 projects that you can work with, but projects can have essentially as many frames as you want. So I use them as a bit of a scratch space for everything. And I've wandered off again. So what's I doing? Pink block. Okay. So as before, it's just gone into that same place because we're using the same grid details as the last one. And we want it to start in column 2 and span 1. Span 1. And then we change the rows, so it starts in row 1 and spans across 2 because we've got 2 cells there. It's a bit like working with tables back in the old days. Hang on. Starts in row 1 and then spans 2. Sweet. Looks good. Looks good. And And sometimes it's actually even easier just to copy this whole thing and change, oh my goodness, the scroll on this is ridiculous. Change this to green block. So we want that color. And watch that turn green. Sweet. So that one is in column 2, span 1, which we've already got because that's the same as pink block. And row 3, span 1. So just change row 3 and span 1. Nice. It's starting to come together, and now it really, really looks like that old TV thing, if anyone remembers that, back before, 24-hour TV was an actual thing. So now we want to do this bright yellow block, which is in column 3. Oh my goodness, why does it keep doing that? Because I'm an idiot. Okay. So, column 3, span 1, because we've got it in one column. That's going to move him over there, and row 1, span 1. Nice and simple. That's going to put him up there. Sweet. So you can sort of see how Grid's coming together. It's nice and chill. And once you've got your head around it, it really does make a lot of sense. So what's next? Orange block. And here is that color. Very nice. And he's also column 3, span 1, because he's in column 3 and he doesn't go past column 3. But we're going to start in row 2, span 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. And then our last one is the neon green block. Oh my goodness. Make it stop. That color. And he is in column 4, again, span 1. He's going to move over there. And row 1, span 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. So you can see how we've sort of replicated this grid over here. But as you're probably thinking, Sadri, it doesn't look a single thing like that, because everything is evenly spaced and every single one of those blocks is taking up an even amount of space. Whereas over here, this one's very skinny and this one's quite big. So let's see how we're going to do that. So if we go back up here and look at these. So this is column 1, 2, 3, 4. And along here, row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where it can get a little bit confusing and you'll find that you need to play with it a bit. But again, it helps if you have your rows numbered over here because you can sort of see what you're doing. So these look like they're about 40% width, columns 1 and 2. So column 1 here, we'll call him 40%. And that's going to change the width of that. Column 2, we'll call that also 40%. And that's going to change the width of that. And because these two are set still as FR, or free space, it's going to divide that space evenly between them. But as you can see, column 3 is a little bit bigger than column 4. So maybe we'll make these 30%. And column 4 will make 10%. That looks a bit more like the design. You don't have to do these in percentages, you can do them in pixels, set them quite hard, or you can do them as 30 vmin, which is going to do 30 of the minimum space. We'll call this one FR for a second. You can do it in sort of whichever way you sort of prefer. You can also use clamp in here if you're familiar with clamp, which allows you to set min, max and preferred value. And again with the rows, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. So row 1, as you can see, is actually quite skinny, and so is row 5. So we'll call that 1 vmin, maybe we'll make him 2 vmin. Actually maybe 5. Yeah, that looks about right. And, oh gosh. Anytime I try and highlight something, it just scrolls all the way down. And we'll call this one 3 vmin. Nice. Nice. And this isn't working because obviously it's looking more square than it is rectangle. So we might change this to 40 vmin. Yes, that's more like it. And so you can keep as many of these as FR as you like, but just remember that they're always going to be, so when we go to this, you're going to find that the ones that are FR will stretch out more than others. You can also put in auto, which if you've got text elements inside or images or whatever, it will take the sizing based on the size of the element that's inside it, and other elements will shift around that. So FR basically divides up the free space that's left in the container after all of the static elements or elements with defined sizes have been taken out. So now we can sort of see that those two FRs aren't really working for me. So we're going to call this one 14 vmin. There, that's a bit more like it. Yeah. And if I was doing a proper design, something that I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do with it, I would probably have a better idea of exactly what I wanted, and the exact sizes that I wanted. But I haven't answered the question, why this and not Flexbox? Obviously you can do a much more complex layout than you can with Flexbox, and one of the things that I did in one of my more recent layouts was a sort of pop-out style heading. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a div here. And it's just going to pop it in the first available, well, the last available space, because we're working with a grid. Anything that's inside this grid container, it's going to try and assign it into a space. Because there's no definition as to where this belongs, it's just going to put it anywhere basically. And we're going to pop it at the very end of the box, and that's to make sure that it loads last and on top of any other thing in this particular box. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to adjust our design on this side, because I do think that's an important thing to do, especially when you're getting your head around grid. So we're going to just hide those for the moment. Oh no, it's not going to hide them all. Alright. So what we want is, say we want a heading that goes like this. Alright. And we'll just make that, or we'll make it white. We'll give it an outline in bright pink, just so that you can see what I'm doing. And a bit of text. Because you will be working with a lot of text-based elements, and especially pictures as well. So we want this heading to sit here. Obviously, that's not going to work with our existing grid layout. So we'll just send these back to here. So what we need to do is we need to adjust our grid layout so that this fits. And what we need to do is, because all of these lines are still apply, but we're going to need a couple more. So we're going to pop one here at the start, go away, and another one at the end. And I'm just holding down my arrow key to move this, because again, I am an insanely lazy person, and that's just how we roll. So that's our new columns, and we've grabbed these. We've got column 1 over there now, column 2 is here, column 3 is going to be here, 4, and we've created columns 5 and column 6. So the shape of our grid has changed, and it's going to be different on the rows as well. So the top of our grid is no longer here, it's actually going to be up here. And we need another one to cap off the bottom of that heading, because it drops below where that yellow box ends. So we want it to fill this space. So again, we just move our column, our row numbers. So 1 is up there, 2 is now here, 3, is this teensy weensy one here, 4 is going all the way up there, and 5 is going to be up here. I just had the worst feeling that I hadn't even pressed record. Could you imagine? I've done all of this work. This is row 6. And create row 7. And how you adjust these is going to depend on how you work best. Because obviously we've changed the complete layout of the grid, so we're going to need to do all of this again, and that's going to and again I will start by going with FRs. So 1 FR, how many columns have we got now? We've got 6 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we've got 7 rows. Go back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, because we've got these already defined, they're going to find their little spots, and we're going to have to move them. So, blue block, which is our friend here, he's now starting column 1, ending column 2. Sweet. So, column 1, span 2. Instead of span 1 like before. Row starting 2 now, not row 1, because row 1 is up here now. So start row 1, span 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2, span 4. And that will move that one around. Sweet. Where's purple block these days? Starts in column 1, spans 1, 2, 3, 4. So he goes all the way over that way now. And it's going to look a little messy over this side, but don't stress. And row starting 6, spanning 1. And I do this a lot when I change my mind about stuff. I'm always changing my mind about stuff. Cyan block is now in row 7 and starts in column 1 and spans 6 instead of 5. Instead of 4, sorry. So 1 spans 6, we'll make it fit along that bottom line. And row 7 span 1. So you can see again it's starting to take shape and our heading is there. Alright, pink block. You start in column 3 and span 2. And I'll move him along. And we start in row 2 and span 1, 2, 3. Nice. It is actually back there, but because these load after it, they're actually hiding it. But when these move over here, it'll be fine. Trust me. I'm an expert. I'm not an expert. Green block is in column 3 and spans 1, 2. I am by no means an expert. I've been doing this for all of 5 minutes. Hoping that the fact that I haven't been doing this very long makes it easier to explain, but who actually knows? And we've got it in row 5 and spanning 1. So we move him down. And there he is. Yellow block, which is this little fella here. He is now in column 5 and spanning 1. And he's in row 2, spanning 1. So he's just going to sit there. Good, yellow block. Aside from forgetting to set display grid, and please don't forget to do that because it will make you sad and it will make you rage. That was so stupid. Okay, orange block. It's not very orange, but we'll go with it. Is in column 5. I will get these rows and columns right one day. I won't. Column 5, span 1. And there he is. And row 3, spanning 1, 2, 3, 4. What did I say? 3 span 4. This is why I usually have it on a second screen, because I can just look straight at it without stressing. Yeah, it's much easier that way. Alright, so our next trick is this green block here, which starts in column 6 and spans 1. That's going to shift him over there. And now he starts in row 2 and spans 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we've got all of these coloured blocks where we wanted them before. That's cool. That's awesome. But what about this heading? Like, come on, Sadri, you promised me an overlapping heading. So oh my goodness. Maybe it's my mouse speed. It is ridiculously sensitive. So we're going to give that a background of all the Fs. And alright, so because we've copied it from the neon green block, it's just popped itself over there. And if we look at the grid layout, you can see that everything's aligned to the grid again. Nice and neat, very cool. And we've got that top row again. So, according to our design, the heading block starts in column 2 and spans 2. So 1, 2. 2, span 2. And that's going to bring it over here. But we don't want it to do that. We want it to overlap this pink and blue block because we think that's a pretty cool effect. So we want it to start in row 1 and span 1, 2, 3. And you can sort of see how that's cutting off those there, which is awesome. That's exactly what we wanted. We'll give it some padding. And text align center. Alright, so now that we've done that, that's pretty cool. That's one thing that I haven't been able to do with Flex, is this overlapping stuff. I think it's really cool. I have definitely overused it in the past couple of weeks. But we'll go back and we will adjust these sizings. Okay. So now you can see that because we've adjusted the number of columns and rows, all of these are going to be a little bit different. And also because we're going to have text in here, especially if you're working with a theme that you're making, you may not know exactly how wide that's going to be or what percentage of the design that you want it to take up. So if you want that to be a bit more stretchy, you'll put your FR in there. So say we want everything that is in this column here to be a bit more elastic than the rest. We'll call that our FR column. So that's just going to take up any free space that's not taken up by the other elements. So that's column 2. Column 1 we'll call 1 vmin. No, that's not very interesting. 5 vmin. Yep, that's better. Column 2 is 1 FR. Column 3 we'll make an auto. So what that's going to do is that's going to say anything that's in this particular element, we're going to size according to that. And because the other column that it's taking up is an FR column, that will take up any free space. Nice and shiny. But because we've got other FRs in there as well, it's not going to do it quite as effectively. So we'll call this one 10 vmin. Yeah, nah. Nah, we don't like it. Because for some reason, we're going to make that another 1 FR. Because for some reason, it collapsed that entire side, but we want that effect. So we'll call this one 10 vmin and another 10 vmin. Where did our green one go? Where did green block go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hang on. I've deleted a column. There we go. And yeah, we want this one to be a bit wider, so we'll call him 15. There we go. So that's our column sorted. And no, I do not want to leave, thank you very much. And so here we've got the rows, and you can sort of see how they space out along here. We can see that 3 needs to be very narrow, 7 needs to be very narrow. So 1, 2, 3, we'll call that 3 vmin. And we'll make 7 3v min as well. Nice. Now this bit along here, this bottom bit, we want that to be quite small too. And that one is, so that's 3 there, that's that bottom one. It's getting this space from column 2. So we probably want to make that about 4v min, maybe. Row 2, goodness, if I ever get it right, it would be nice. And so now it's getting its space from the top. And let's make that also 4v min. And that will bring it up. We might make this 2. No, we don't like it. Call it 3. We'll make that 1 because that needs to be very narrow. There we go. That's how we want it. 5 and 6 are pretty chill. And we might make 5 our FR row. So row 5 is going to take up all of the space that any other element isn't using. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be that one. We'll call this one 6v min. And we'll call this one 6v min as well. So as you can see, row 5 is taking up any of the available space that the other ones aren't using, because these ones are set as, they're not hard widths, they're relative widths, but they're going to change according to the available space. And that is the magic of grid. As you can see, that heading is expanding according to the space that's available. And if we didn't want it to do that, we would set these to auto and auto. And maybe we want to make this particular row here column. So 1, 2, 3, column 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make that the FR, the free space row. And what that's going to do is those autos are going to say, okay, that heading text is this size. We always need it to be at least this size. One thing to note is that if you're using autos, it will size, I wish I could keep those grid lines up, it will size the rows down accordingly. So you can see how the blue and the green block changed sizes as soon as I did that. But that's just going to mean that everything will size around that text. And that is the magic of grid. I hope that you've learnt something today. I've certainly learnt to remember to put display grid on the container. But yeah, going back through the HTML, we've got the container, which is where we set display grid, and then all of the children inside it, just as loose divs. And there's so many good things that you can do with this, especially if you're designing for JSync. It will allow you to, because you're loading the mini profile inside of the post template, if you just load them as information in loose divs, it means that you've got your post template set up as a grid, you can essentially place that information anywhere in the post template, even though you're not technically loading it in the post template. And that's a really cool thing to do, especially if you like to put the member group name somewhere that it doesn't want to go. But yeah, that's I don't know if I've got anything more to say really. I've been yammering on at you for almost an hour. Nice. Thanks for listening. Thanks for playing along. And please, absolutely, let me know if it was helpful, if there's anything else that you want to learn. And yeah, welcome to my very super beginner guide to grid. Yay! Sound effects and stuff. I don't do transitions or whatever. Thanks everyone, and have a lovely weekend.